So recently I was looking at every science fiction and fantasy series that I've started but not finished, and I have 40 of them. I've got them all up here, and the reason they are on this tier list, because what I want to do is list them on how likely I am to finish them, all the way down to I will never finish the series. I just wanted to talk about them, talk about why I started them, why I haven't finished them, and just, this is a great excuse to talk about a lot of books at one time. If the editing is a little wonky in this, I just want to apologize, but I'm going to be kind of brutal when it comes to chopping stuff up, just because I don't want to waste your time. If I can cut this however long video it's going to be, if I can remove about 30% of it and it just makes it flow a little better, I'm going to do it. So let's start with what the tier lists are. ASAP is I want to finish the series as soon as possible. Not binge it right now, but maybe in the next year or two, if I can really do it. I want to finish the series. Like, they take a high priority. So when I get to a point where I'm like, well, what am I going to read next? The first thing I'm going to look at are these book series and try to get something from them. Next is I will fit these in. It may take me the next 10 years, but I will slowly chip away at these book series because I want to see where they go. Someday is, someday I'll get to them. I own a copy, or I'm always looking for a copy. And if I find a copy, maybe I can move it up the list, that kind of thing. Probably not is no-ish. I'm making the probably not where I put everything that should be DNF'd, but I probably want to read it eventually. And then DNF, I'm not finishing the series. And I'll give reasons why I'm not going to finish series. So I guess let's get started. The first is The Bulgariad by David Eddings. This is going to be in the probably not listing. And the reason why is because I read these like 15 years ago. Like, I read the first 4 or 5 and they're good. Well, they're fine. And I really worry about going back to them and just not liking them at all. There's going to probably be a couple on this list where it's like, yeah, these are okay. They're probably way better when you're a kid. And so the reason it's going in probably not is because there's a good chance my daughter will want to read them at some point. And if she does, then I will probably reread them with her. She's only 7 and she doesn't know this yet, but if she gets into science fiction and fantasy at all, I just want to encourage it as much as I can. And I just want to read whatever she reads at the same time. Having a buddy read something with you is just so fun. And I really want her to experience that as much as possible, even to the detriment of my future reading of things I enjoy. Next, this is an auto DNF, but not for the reason you would think, and that is the Horus Heresy series. And the reason it goes into auto DNF is because I am not reading 55 books in a book series, and that's not even including the Solar War. You're looking at 65 books for the series, and a lot of them aren't very good. I've read the first 5, which everyone who reads the Horus Heresy should read the first 5. They're very, very good. And they set up the entire heresy, so you got to read those. And then just move on to whatever Space Marine Legion you prefer, or Adeptus Mechanicus, or whatever. And just read those, and then just be content. I feel like reading all of them is an exercise in futility. This next series, I will fit in. I don't have very many left, and it's X Heroes by Peter Clines is the first book. And the premise is super cool. So it's superheroes that take in a bunch of people in Hollywood, and they're the last survivors of a zombie apocalypse. So these superheroes are trying to help these people stay alive and just outlive the zombie apocalypse. Super cool, like generic zombie apocalypse, generic zombies with a few twists here and there. And then you got superheroes, and you have all this drama between the heroes and the people, and there's these epic fights. I mean, it's everything you want in superhero stuff. So I will fit them in, and I've read the first 3. The 4th one, I've stalled out on the 4th one twice now, and I don't know why. It's not that it's bad. I think it's just that I binged the first 3, and then I get to the 4th one, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't know if I've got any more of these in me. But I will finish them. Next time I start them, I'm just going to start off at book 4 and just move forward. We've got his Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. I will read the rest of these. I've read the first one and I loved it, and I've read it twice now. And I don't know why. I haven't read the rest of them. I think one of the reasons is I lost my copy of the books, but I'll probably listen to them at some point. So yeah, they will get fit in eventually. All right, here's going to be a surprising DNF, I think, for some people. The Witcher series. I've read the first two, and I tried to read the third one, and holy cow, was it boring. I just did not care. I have a friend that really, really likes the series, and I really wanted to try it again. I just couldn't do it. I actually enjoy The Last Wish. It's a good book. Like the collection of short stories, very cool. Shows how brutal The Witcher can be. Shows off the world. I really enjoyed it, but man, I just did not care by the time I got to the third book, so it ain't happening. Next, we have two series, but I'm going to use just one book for them because they're written by the same author and they all take place in the same universe. And that's the Eisenhorn series and the Ravenor series from Dan Abnett. I've read the first 3 or 4 Eisenhorn books, however many are in the Eisenhorn omnibus, and those were good. I really enjoyed them. And then I read the first book in the Ravenor series, and I just didn't care. I know that they go places with those series, but I just didn't care. I'm putting it in probably not because, like I said, I've heard they go places, so maybe someday if I really want to binge some Warhammer stuff again, maybe I'll do it, but probably not. Next is John Scalzi's Old Man War series. I'm going to put it in DNF because I love Old Man's War and I love some of the other stuff in the series, but I really don't have any interest in going back to it. I will probably read Old Man's War again at some point, but I don't think I'm going to ever be invested in the series. Oh, here comes a goodie. Aragon. I am not going to finish that series. I read the first 3 or 4. I can't remember. But then I guess I grew out of them, which, like I said with David Eddings in the Bulgariad, you just grow out of stuff. It just happens. Here's our first ASAP, The Hyperion Cantos by Dan Simmons, which I think The Hyperion Cantos is technically just 2 books, but then you have Endymion, The Rise of Endymion, all that stuff. I want to read those. I especially want to read the second part of The Hyperion Cantos. I love Hyperion. It is a masterpiece. So, got to finish it soon. Hopefully in the next 6 months or a year. I got a lot on my plate. I'm hoping that by the end of this, I don't have just the ASAP tier completely filled to the gills because that won't make any sense. Next is Larry Correa's series that starts with Son of the Black Sword. This book is freaking awesome. I made a review about it. So good. And I just recently found out that he's finishing the series this year. So I will be reading the entire series this year. As soon as there is a release date and I can pre-order the final book is when I start binging the rest of the series. So it will be done very soon. Next, we have the Sun Eater series. Duh, I'm going to finish it. This is another one kind of like Larry Correa's series. I know the series is going to be finished, but I kind of want to wait until there's a hard date for the final book. And then I will probably binge all of them right up to the end. I haven't done that in a while, and I really enjoy binging book series. I binged Malazan. I read them back to back to back to back to back to back. All 10 books, just boom. So I really enjoy binging series. So I'm going to wait until the final book is announced with a release date and we'll go from there. So this one is a someday, maybe I'll fit these in. They're super short. So I'm going to put it in I Will Fit These In, which is the Southern Reach trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer. Annihilation was good. It was trippy and it was weird. And I've heard the other ones are different. Each one's kind of different and weird. So I'll definitely get to them. They are short, so they should be pretty easy to fit in. Next is all of Esselmont's series in Malazan. I'm going to put this in I Will Fit These In, and I'm only doing that because it's a I will fit these in and then probably binge all of the books. So when I get to them, I'm really hoping I really like them and can just burn through them. Currently, there's someone in a book group I'm in that's reading them and he absolutely loves them, and I'm just very hyped about them. But it's one of those things, it's like when I cross over that line, like there's no going back. I'm gonna have to do all of them and it's gonna take up a lot of my time, kind of like Malazan did when I read all 10 in a row. So yeah, they're gonna be I Will Fit These In for now, probably moving up to ASAP as soon as I finish the first one. And the reason this is on the list, even though I haven't read any books in the series, is because of Malazan. Like, I read the first 10 books, and it's a shared universe. So I got to put these on the list because I know they expand the lore. There are characters in here that I really want to get to that are just mentioned in the series, like members of the Crimson Guard and stuff like that. They sound so badass, and I just really want to get to that series. So I cheated a little with this one, but it's okay. It's my list. I can do what I want. This is going to go in DNF, which is Larry Correa's Monster Hunter series. And it's not because I don't like the series. I love the first 4 or 5 books, but I have not heard good things about the ones that come afterwards where he's got like a co-author or someone else writes them. So I'm really just not interested in doing that. So the series is good. I highly recommend the first 4 or 5. Man, they're good. They're super exciting, super action oriented. It's urban fantasy where they're mercenaries that hunt monsters. It's super cool. All this supernatural stuff, werewolves, vampires. It's really badass, but I'm not going to finish the series because I really don't care about the later books. Now this one is going to be a someday, and that's the entire John Carter of Mars series. And the reason it's going to go in someday is because I have every intention of reading a lot of them. Actually, we're going to move this, probably not. But what I worry about is that he went full Tarzan and the later ones just suck and just aren't worth reading at all. It's going to go in probably not, but I probably will get a decent chunk of them read because spacefaring sword and sorcery is just cool. For some reason, I can't remember the name for it. It has a name, but I can't remember what it is. So we'll just move on. These are going in, I will fit these in, and that's the Silver John series by Manly Wade Wellman. And the reason this is going in, I will fit these in, is because I pre-ordered a collection that's every Silver John book and short story ever published. And I got those from Hafner Press, and they're not here yet. When they get here, I will move on. I've got one more book that I already own a physical copy of, and it's like book 4 though, and I need book 3. So I'll get to those as I can, but the series is amazing. I mean, it's set in like the 1950s or 1960s. You follow John the Balladeer, also known as Silver John. He's got a guitar with silver strings, and he's a freaking bard, man. He's literally a bard. He's like a Korean War vet. He knows a little about a lot of things. He can really play some music. He's friends with everybody he meets, and he solves supernatural mysteries. And your boy's got a little bit of magic. It feels like an Appalachian origin story for someone in the Dresden Files universe, like a wizard learning on his own kind of thing. So it's really, really good. I loved the first 2 books, so I will be fitting those in. All right, Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern series. Now, I have read probably the first 9 of them, so someday I might go back to them and read more of them, but I don't know how likely I am to finish the whole series. But it's one of those things that I kind of hope I can get back to and enjoy. I just hope they don't suck, because I read those first 9 16 years ago now, so hopefully they're still good. All right, this one is an I will fit these in because boy, I do not have time for it. I used the Elric cover, but what I'm talking about is Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion. I want to read them all. I'm really, really excited every time I read an Elric book, but man, Michael Moorcock is just trippy writer. So what I have to do is I have to pace myself with his works. I haven't even finished the first volume in the Elric sagas because it's a little much. I'm going to have to chip away at everything in the Eternal Champion series. So it may take me forever, but I will get it done. And it's one of those slowly but surely type things. I love it, but I need it in small doses. Now I can't put this in ASAP because the series is way too big. You know what? I can put it in ASAP, and I'm going to. But I'm not going to finish it as soon as possible because it would destroy me mentally. And that's Wild Cards, edited by George R.R. Martin. And the series is just superheroes. And it's so good. I've loved the first 3 that I've read. As long as the quality doesn't drop off, this will be a consistent thing that I read every few months forever. So I'm putting it in the as soon as possible tier because by chipping away at it every month, I've got intent behind getting it done as soon as I can without losing my mind. So it's going up there. Next, we have Empire of the East is the name of the series by Fred Saberhagen. I read the first book, The Broken Lands, and it's fine. The premise is so much more badass than the actual book. I was explaining to a couple of different people how I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to do this. I don't know if I'm going to finish this series. And they're like, well, what's it about? And then I explain it and they're like, they look at me like I'm an idiot because they're like, that sounds amazing. So here it is. This is a post-apocalyptic Earth where at one point the Americans and the Soviets created these shields, like energy shields, to protect themselves from nuclear war. Well, nuclear war pops off and they both fire up these experimental shields at the same time as nuclear bombs start going off, and the shields touch one another, and basically it alters reality. It makes magic exist. Some of the laws of physics are changed because of these two energy fields hitting each other, and the nuclear bombs that go off turn into demons, like entities of pure energy that are basically demons. Sounds amazing. None of that happens in the first book. The first book is about some farm boy or something who gets a hold of a nuclear powered tank they keep referring to as an elephant, which I guess it's big and gray and it has a trunk, whatever. And it's just so weird. And there's like bird people and just, it's bizarre. I don't know if I'll ever finish it. Maybe if I get really inspired, I'll try it again, but I don't see myself getting to it. But I'm leaving it in the probably not because there is a slight chance. Next, we got my boy Steven Erikson and the Willful Child series. It's a Star Trek spoof. I've got a review for the first book on my channel. It's so funny. I absolutely love it. And it's in ASAP because I'll probably finish them this year, but I want to pace myself. There's only 3 of them. So when they're done, they're done. And of course I can listen to them again, but I really don't want to rush through such a good thing. They're just cool as hell and super funny. The first one made me so happy, just really brought me out of a slump that I was in. And so I'm kind of saving 2 and 3 for that kind of thing. Next time I'm down and I can't really figure out what to read and I'm just not really feeling like doing anything, then I'll start book 2. I know I'll just feel better like instantly. Here's another shocker, and I'm putting it in DNF, but maybe someday I might finish it, and that's the Expanse series. And now the Expanse series, I loved the series until book 7, and then it did everything I could not stand in a book series, and it just chapped my ass so bad, I'm probably never going to finish reading them. I was so mad when I finished the book. Not even mad, just disappointed. So 1, you have a time jump. This is on the back of the book, so I'm not really spoiling anything. And I hate time jumps like that. I finished the book before that, and I was just thinking, how are they going to do this? Like, what's going to happen next? And I did that for a year. And then the book comes out, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a time jump. And oh man, I really hope they don't start it off as we're breaking up the band. And they literally broke up the group. And I'm just like, really? But the group's not broke up because something happened and they had to do the things they'd always done before the time jump. What'd they do for 20 years? I don't get it. And so anyways, I'm DNFing it because another thing was in the series, you always have like the crew and then you have the side story, not really even side story. It's like the parallel story. And you're just seeing the plot from like another angle. Well, the plot from another angle in that book was literally the same plot from like 3 books ago. Almost scene for scene, man. It was just like, what? What are you doing? Here's the worst part. It took place in the same location. So you have this person doing essentially the same plot, but altered by like 10 degrees. And I'm like, why? Why is this here? Like, what happened? So anyways, I'm done ranting about The Expanse. I'm probably not going to finish it because it pissed me off. And this isn't going to go in ASAP, but it is another space opera that I will finish, and that's the Culture series by Ian M. Banks. I have read the first 2, and man, they're good. Consider Phlebas. I really, really liked it. And then I heard that the Player of Games is even better. It is. Wow, the Player of Games is good. And there is just something special about his writing. It's great. So I will definitely fit them in over time. I think I'm going to actually move them to someday. And the reason I put someday is because what I really want is a buddy read. So I'm trying to find someone that will read the 3rd one with me. It's like Use of Weapons, I think. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I'm going to read them all someday. I own the first 4 or 5 in physical copies, so I'd really like to get to them. So someday I will get to them, and hopefully with a friend. The next one, I'll talk about it for a minute, but I kind of want to tell a story about it. and it's going to go in DNF, by the way. And that's the Oryx and Crake series by Margaret Atwood. I really like Oryx and Crake. The book itself, it's great. I have a first edition, first printing. Super cool. I was super hyped when I found it, but I really don't care what happens in the rest of the series. And I've tried other Margaret Atwood and I just really didn't care about the books. Like, I want to read The Handmaid's Tale eventually, just because a lot of people say it's a book you gotta read, but I don't even know if I'll get to it. But what I want to talk about with Margaret Atwood is I was in a Facebook group, which, yeah, I get what I deserve for being in a Facebook group. They were talking about genre fiction because they were doing like a book of the month, and then the winner is whatever, and we read it. Well, I put in for genre fiction, being a little bit of a troll, but not, I put in Blood Meridian because Blood Meridian is the best Western ever written. And they're like, well, that doesn't count because we're doing genre fiction and that's literary fiction. And I'm like, I've read an interview where Cormac McCarthy said that Blood Meridian is a Western. And their response was, well, because it was written by a literary author, it doesn't count as genre fiction. And I'm like, what the hell? I was so mad. And after that, I started referring to Margaret Atwood as that science fiction writer. And it really chapped everyone's ass that saw it. And I thought it was funny, but I don't really go to that group anymore. I'm not going to read any more from that science fiction writer, Margaret Atwood. So let's move on. This is going in ASAP because I plan on finishing them this year. I've only got 2 books left, and that's the Dying Earth series by Jack Vance. The first Dying Earth is good. It brings you into the Dying Earth world, and it definitely intrigued me. Then I read Eyes of the Overworld. And holy crap, Kugel the Clever is a scumbag and I love and hate him. His exploration of this quirky world was just so freaking cool. And I know the next one is a Kugel book. And then after that is Rialto the Marvelous. And I've got a first edition, first printing of Rialto the Marvelous. And I really can't wait to get to those. So I'm hoping to finish the Dying Earth this year because I also have a first printing. It's not a first edition because there was like a subterranean press or something, but it's a nice copy of Songs of the Dying Earth, edited by George R.R. Martin. And it's just some of the best science fiction and fantasy writers of the last 50 years writing short stories that take place in the Dying Earth. So I will probably finish that this year too. So that's why it's up there in ASAP. Check out the Dying Earth. You'd really like it. This is going in probably not because actually we're going to put it in DNF with a caveat. And that's Tarzan by Edgar Rice Burroughs. The Tarzan series, I've heard, falls off a cliff eventually. And it's like, well, if I keep writing these, I keep getting checks. So I don't blame Edgar Rice Burroughs. You got to get paid. But I'm probably just going to stick to the first 3 books. Time and time again, I've heard Steven Erikson say how much he loves the first 3 and he'll just go back to them and they're just a joy. And so I'm probably going to stick to the first 3, maybe expand a little beyond that, but I'm not reading every Tarzan book ever made. Now, this is going to be another thing like the Esselmont series, which is I will fit these in, but I'm not going to binge them. And that is everything else that Steven Erikson has written in the Malazan series. So I use The God Is Not Willing for this, but this includes the rest of that trilogy when it comes out, and it includes Carcanis. So I will read those along with the novellas with Bukalain and Corbel Brooch, because those seem hilarious. I have the first 3 novellas in like the little collection, and I know that the audiobooks are out, and so I will definitely be getting to those. And the Bukalain and Corbel Brooch are easy to fit in because they're short, so that'll be stuff I squeeze between the ASAP stuff. I know I've said I will fit these in multiple times without a that's what she said, and I'll just leave that there. This next one, I will definitely fit these in. But I accidentally read the last book of the 4, and that's the Kirik series by Gardner F. Fox. And the Kirik series is like a Conan the Barbarian knockoff, kind of. I actually think that the Kirik stuff is a little more entertaining than most of the Conan stuff. Like, Robert E. Howard was a master of his craft. His ceiling is like unattainable by most writers, but I really think that his floor is a lot lower than a lot of people say. And this is having read every Conan story ever written. I know it's a weird flex, but we'll move on. Like I said, his ceiling's super high. Floor is a lot lower than people think. And I think Kirik is kind of right in the middle of that. And the cool thing about Kirik is he's funny. He is actually funny, unlike in the Conan series where everyone talks about Conan having a bit of a jovial nature, but every time you read a Conan story, he's not funny and he's a bit of an ass. Like, Kirik is a bit of an ass, but in a funny way. Like in that book is like a queen that gets kidnapped and she gets replaced by someone that looks just like her. I mean, so much like her that when the lost queen shows up, Kirik thinks it's his girlfriend who's disappeared and he's looking for. He gets like a little too familiar with her, not in like a creepy, pervy way, but like he thinks it's his girlfriend. And so even after he finds out she's not his girlfriend, he's kind of like a little too friendly with her. And at one point she's like passed out because she's been running for her life and all this stuff. And like her bare butt is exposed. And to wake her up, he just like smacks her on the butt and she like flips out and gets all pissed off, justifiably. And then even Kirik himself is just like, oh, whoa. And he kind of realizes what he did. But the fact that this guy just thinks it's funny to just slap someone on the ass to wake him up, which I guarantee he would do to just about anyone, it's just entertaining. I really like it. And you can get all 4 books with god awful ugly covers on Amazon. And I'm going to get them. They're like $8 each. So I will get them and I will fit them in as I pick up each book. I just want to start with, I tried to use the first book in each series as the book cover, but I couldn't do it with this one because this thing is just so weird that I just had to include this freaky cover. And that's the cover to October's Baby, which is part of the Dread Empire series by Glenn Cook. There's literally like a flying baby Jesus looking thing and a knight and a wizard on the cover. Like, it doesn't get better than that. It's like that meme where it's like dudes will see this and just say hell yeah. I saw that cover and I just said hell yeah. The Dread Empire series is good, but it's not Glenn Cook's best. It's ambitious to a fault, and it's like a military fantasy epic. And so there's a lot of stuff with like this army moved here and this army did this and these people fought here and here. And it manages to narrow down to the personal with the main characters. And you care about quite a few of them. And he does a really good job of humanizing these people, but it is not for everyone. It is weird as hell. So I will be finishing them ASAP because I'm reading everything Glenn Cook has ever written. And I only have 3 books left in the Dread Empire series. And so, yeah, they're going to be done probably in the next month or 2. Just a weird series overall. I can only recommend it to like the hardest of hardcore, either military fantasy enjoyers or Glenn Cook enjoyers. And the next is an accidental edition. All right, I got a secret for you. I honestly thought I had read the entire Book of the New Sun. And then I went back and I was looking and I was like, wait a second, I never read the last one. And so I was like, oh crap, I've been reading spoilers. The spoilers don't matter. That's not what the series is about. But I honestly still don't know how it ends. So that's good. But yeah, someday I'm going to go back to it. That someday might be sooner than later. But what I think I'm actually going to do is someday I will fit these in. Gene Wolfe talked about how he read The Lord of the Rings 1 chapter a day and just stretched it out over a long period of time. And it gave him time to just kind of chew on each chapter before moving on. I think I'm going to do that with the Book of the New Sun. I'm going to just do a chapter a day and just really let it sink in. I've already read the first 3. I think that gives me quite a leg up compared to the first time I read it where I'm just like, what is happening? Oh my God, this is so cool, but I'm so confused. I'm going to someday fit them in. We'll put it that way. This is going to go into ASAP, but I have caveats, and that's the Thieves World series. And the Thieves World series is a lot like Wild Cards, where it's a collection of writers writing in a shared universe. And it's like a sword and sorcery universe and like grim fantasy and stuff like that. One of the problems is I now own the first decade worth of novels and short story collections in the series. But what ended up happening after that was there was like 2 more books, and then there was a 10-year gap, and then another collection of short stories came out, and then another collection of short stories. And then one of the editors for the series has a book series that takes place in the Thieves World universe, but then moves on to like Fantasy Earth 2,000 years ago or something. So I'm going to count the original like 10 years of books as the series because I can make my own rules because I'm a grown man, and I'm going to read those as soon as possible. It counts as soon as possible because I really enjoy listening to them, and Audible for some reason has decided to slowly trickle out each short story collection. And so I will be listening to them as Audible releases them, which means that I will finish them as soon as they are done being produced. So as soon as possible. Okay, this next one is Someday, and it's a someday because I don't own a copy. And when I own a copy, I will finish them. And that is the Dagger and the Coin series by Daniel Abraham. I've read The Dragon's Path. Funny enough, I read The Dragon's Path in like the weirdest way. Early on in the ebook revolution, I had got my first Kindle and I was looking for things to read. It was like, I got to justify this thing. Give me some ebooks. So Orbit had some weird deal where if you bought The Dragon's Path, you also got Leviathan Wakes, the first book in the Expanse series, attached to that ebook for free. So I bought it, and so I read The Dragon's Path, and I was like, this is good fantasy. I really like this. This is refreshing. And then I read Leviathan Wakes, and I was like, oh my God, this is some of the best science fiction I've ever read. And I fell in love. And I moved on with Leviathan Wakes and the Expanse series, but I never went back to The Dagger and the Coin. And I really like Daniel Abraham's writing, so I want to get back to them. And it's just a matter of when I find them and when I actually make time to do it. Another someday is the Recluse series by Ellie Modisett Jr. And the reason this is a someday is because I read the first 13 of them. I think there's like 24 of them now or something. It's just a ton. And I will get to them someday, but it's just a really tall order. I will say that right now on Audible, this isn't an ad, I'm not sponsored by them. Most of them are free to Audible members. Go check them out if you want to. And of course I did. I've got all of them now that are available, so we'll maybe give them a chance on audiobook. Might be something I do to kind of cleanse my palate between other stuff. I will say I recommend not reading them in publication order, because by the third book you see the ending for the entire series and you're like, wait, what? And my buddy read them that way and was done. So I suggest you read The Magic of Recluse, get into the world, really feel the vibes, and then go back and read them in chronological order. The early ones in the chronological order are actually really good, but I will say a lot of the stories are the traditional farm person moves on and becomes a powerful person in the world. So understand that going in. It's like half of them are that way. But he does flip the script in one set where it's like 45-year-old man becomes important person and uses his previous life experiences and trauma to kind of build up his abilities. He comes into it late. And I like that because I'm getting old. And so I might have to stumble into something cool and awesome late. So gives me hope. All right, this one is going in someday, and that is a Game of Thrones. And the reason it's going in someday is because I just need closure before I read the series again. And I will read the series again, but I need to know that it's either never going to be done or is done. I don't care either way. I do not begrudge George at all. He can write whatever he wants. What I've really enjoyed is just reading everything else George R. R. Martin has written. I love Fever Dream. Holy crap, you talk about a banger of a book. Steamboats, vampires. I mean, what more can you ask for? And I love everything he does in the Wild Card series. I'm going to read Dying of the Light. I'm going to read the Armageddon Rag, all his other stuff. If the series never gets done, we have what's there. We can love it. We can enjoy it. And as soon as I have closure, I will read the series again because I never read A Dance with Dragons. And so someday I will get to it and I will enjoy it. This is I will fit these in, and that is the Discworld series. The reason I'm going to fit it in is because I have driven myself nuts 3 times now reading the first 7 books in a row. You really got to pace yourself with Discworld. I think that the best way to do it is to just read 1 a month or 2 a month, but put things between them because he repeats himself with some of his humor. And I will say, though, that as a more experienced reader now, the books are even better. He rewards people that are really deep into fantasy. He jokes about old fantasy that most people have never read. So as you've expanded as a reader and grown into these things that no one else has read, you go back to Discworld and you're like, he gets it. He understands. It's so funny. I will fit them in over time. I do want to read every Discworld book ever written instead of just the first 7 again and again and again. Probably going to start with the Guards series. This is going in probably not, and that is the Jade City by Fonda Lee in that series. And it's mostly because I enjoyed Jade City, but the farther I've gotten away from it, the less I've cared. And I know that the other books are a little polarizing. Some people who I trust the opinion of have said that they just didn't care after the second book and never read the third one. Then other people are like, I love the whole trilogy. So I don't know what to think. I'm probably not going to get to them unless they happen to fall in my lap. Here's another good someday. And the first book is Neuromancer by William Gibson, and I can't remember what the rest of the series is called. I do want to get to them because I love Neuromancer. I think Neuromancer, not only is it one of the very first cyberpunk books ever written, I think Neuromancer is a time capsule for how we looked at the future when it was written. It's really funny because even William Gibson himself in an introduction jokes about how there's no cell phones. So people are automatically like, what kind of fake future is this? But at the time, nobody had cell phones. So I like to look at it as an alternate future, kind of the way we have alternate histories. This is like an alternate speculative future. But I like looking at this as a way that technology in the world could have forked off from our current world. And it's great. And I want to read the rest. It'd be super interesting. And, I'll get to them when I get to them. This is an I Will Fit These In, and that is the World's End series by Lynn Carter. The Warrior of World's End is surprisingly good. It's got your generic sword and sorcery style stuff, but it's like a Dying Earth book. So it's like way in the future where the Earth is completely different. Magic exists. Or is it magic? Or is it technology? That kind of thing. I really like the book because the main character, he spends the whole book trying to find out his purpose in life. He was like a vat-grown dude who comes like out of a crack in a mountain, and he's like raised by these people. He doesn't know why he's there. These vaults with these like super beings were put in these different places by like people, a million years ago or whatever, who knew things would happen and they would need heroes at the time to save the world or save humanity. And so he doesn't know if his was open too early or if the event that opened his vault was supposed to happen. And so you have him wandering around trying to figure out why he exists. And it's really cool. So I really enjoyed it. It's just fun. Like, books don't have to change your life. They can just be fun. That's why I plan on fitting those in eventually. I have the second one in a ratty paperback. That's the one bummer. And it might be one of the few reasons why I don't finish the series is they're all ratty ass mass market paperbacks. And I don't want to buy them, read them once, and then worry about reading them again because I don't want them to fall apart. So maybe if I get them all for cheap and I can read them and not worry about it and maybe pick up more copies later to kind of preserve them, maybe I'll do that. All right, we're getting down to the last two, and they happen to also be sword and sorcery. This is going to be a someday, and that's Witchworld. I plan on reading the series, and it's going to be the series as I define it. I think that quite a few of them were only in paperbacks that suck, and so if I can get them, I will get them. But what I've been doing right now is collecting everything in the Witchworld series that was ever put out in a hardcover. And I just got a beautiful first edition, first printing of The Gates to Witchworld. And it's a Tor release of the first 3 books in one beautiful hardcover. And there's a second one that's the next 3 books in a beautiful hardcover. And I think there's maybe another 1 or 2 book club editions that have the next few books. And so I will get those in hardcover, and that will be me like reading the series. And so, yeah, I'll get to them someday. They're super cool. The way I explain the first one to people is it's a dude from our world that gets sent into like this other place where magic is real, psychic abilities are real. But then you also notice that there's technology. Like he meets a bird dude, like the one on the cover, who has like a freaking laser gun or something. So it's super cool. And the book involves at one point a wizard fighting a cybernetically enhanced psychic user on a submarine. That is incredibly badass. Eventually, I will read them because they're just cool. They're just fun like the other ones. Now, speaking of fun and cool, and this is going in ASAP because I've got them all on audio and I have physical copies. That is the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser series. Man, I love Fafhrd and Grey Mouser. It's so good. I am so happy that I found them, and it's such a bummer that Fritz Leiber is not more well known. He coined the term sword and sorcery. And Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, they're like the ultimate bros. And they're a little sleazy. Like, you would want to go drinking with them, but you need to make sure you didn't have any money when the night started, because you will not have any when the night is over. They will rob you. It's great. It brings me joy. And I mean, what is more important in reading books than being joyful? If reading books makes you feel like crap and sucks, then why are you doing it? So yeah, these are the series. I actually had less in the DNF than I assumed, but the probably not is like a soft DNF. So 13 series that I probably won't finish. It's okay. So really, I only have 27 series that I want to finish. Not too bad. Like I said, the ASAP stuff, there's a very good chance other than Thieves World and Wildcards, that I finish them within the next year. Hyperion, I will finish this year. Son of the Black Sword, I will finish this year. I'm going to start making progress. I'm not going to stress myself out about it. Like I said, reading brings me joy. I'm not going to make it a job. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you watched it all the way to here, give me a like and leave a comment if you finished any of these series. If you tell me you finished something in the Someday or the I Will Fit These In and they're worth moving up to ASAP, I'll probably do it. I mean, I'll believe you. No one lies on the internet. So leave me a comment if you finished any of these series and give me your thoughts on them. And with that, I'll see you next time.